Hey, welcome to back to the Leadership Studio here. Another great guest tonight as we further pursue this whole idea of resource development. Today we're talking with B. Dickson, and she's the Director of Advancement out at the Cristo Rey Jesuit School. And just that is going to be interesting to you guys, but just learning from B will be terrific. So B, welcome to the program and to the class.
Thank you. Very excited to be here and to talk about fundraising.
So I really want to talk about Cristo Rey very briefly. So when you have to do, we've talked a little bit in this class about sort of the elevator speech, that first short speech that you give people about the group that you're raising money for. What's the elevator speech for Cristo Rey Jesuit?
Absolutely. So Cristo Rey Jesuit is a new high school that was started in 2009. We opened our doors, and it's a very unique and innovative school in that it is for a college prep education, private, for kids who couldn't normally afford a private education. So we provide, in over 4 years, they're in school, and they go to school for 4 long days from 7:30 in the morning till 5:30, and that allows them 1 day a week to go out into the corporate world and work at corporations. They get great skills working there, filing, faxing, doing entry-level jobs, and then the company then pays the school for the students, and that helps to pay for their education.
It's an amazing experience for those kids. We have Cristo Rey kids in my office, and it's sort of a delightful most of the time to work with those kids.
They're great
sort of a nice thing.
They're getting exposed to things they never would have imagined. They couldn't imagine working at Children at Risk. They couldn't imagine working at Wells Fargo, a Methodist hospital. So they're getting exposed to opportunities and seeing the connection between what they're learning in school and what their future could be.
And this is the future of Houston in many ways, much like the students here at UHD as undergraduates and as graduate students. It's those same kids at Cristo Rey. One of the things I love about the kids who work in our office is every once in a while, if I don't have a meeting with a fundraising lunch meeting, we'll go out to lunch and the kids will come. And we go to places like Indian restaurants and Vietnamese restaurants, and you can tell that they're like watching you. Like, what is Dr. Bob going to get? So because that's what I'm going to get, because they've never been out many times, or certainly to that sort of food.
So you become a mentor and a role model for them, not just in the office and what you're doing, but learning how to go out to restaurants. How do you order? How do you sit there? You know, how do you look at the silverware that's on the table in front of you? So you become a role model and a mentor for them in all aspects of what you're doing.
Yeah. We have one guy, Mr. Clarence, we call him.
Of course,
Clarence Pierre. And he's a guy as big as I am, and he comes in every day. Every time he comes in, he wants like a big, huge hug. And I just know everyone's laughing when Clarence and I hug each other. So it's just sort of what a great guy.
Clarence is a great leader at the school and just a great person. When he makes his morning announcements or afternoon announcements for student council, you know it's Clarence.
And he calls everyone, like Miss Mandy and Mr. Bob, Dr. Bob. And so we call him Mr. Clarence. So it's really nice.
Excellent.
So let's talk a little bit about fundraising, B. If you were to write a book about fundraising, and it's the B. Dickson book on fundraising, what would some of the chapters look like for you?
Well, it's a great question, and it's a funny one because we talk about this all the time at Cristo Rey Jesuit. We always talk about that book in that next chapter in our book. We often relate it to TV shows, but I think if I were to write the book, the first chapter would be, or one of the key chapters would be dating. You know, his fundraising is really about establishing relationships. So you're really dating each other. You're really getting to know each other. You're learning about each other's likes, and you're just learning about what their passion is. And that's what fundraising is about. It's not about asking someone for money. It's really about asking them, having this relationship with them. So that would be one of the chapters. The next one would be the ring. And I'm not talking about proposing, but I'm talking about afterwards. So the ring is more about having gratitude, being grateful for what they've done. You know, volunteers and donors have the opportunity to look at all of the incredible organizations in Houston or nationally or internationally. And if they select you, how incredible, what a gift that is to your organization, whether it's a gift of time or money. So be grateful for every little thing they do, and never forget that it may be $10 or $5, but that's huge. And that's a great gift, so gratitude. And then another chapter I think I would have would be about setting up home. So understanding who you are and what and that what you have represents who you are and what you want to be. So if you went to my office right now and you looked, it would be a horrible mess. And I just think this is not who I am. This is not the image that I want.
Yeah.
But the character of who you are is so much about what's around you. So when we tour Cristo Rey Jesuit, I love the energy, the vitality, and that's what we constantly want to scream out there, is that Cristo Rey Jesuit is a unique and innovative school. We are high energy, we are fast-paced, we are constantly going. If you see a box, we're working outside the box. We're just innovative, and we're always thinking of what's next, but being flexible and looking outside the box.
Do you find that being the head of fundraising for Cristo Rey, it seems to me that it's a different deal than just being the head fundraiser for a school, whether that be a parochial school or a charter school. There's something, it's sort of unique what you guys are doing.
We don't fit in any of those boxes.
Yeah.
So we don't fit in the private school box because
No.
our families
All
are
low
not
income.
paying private tuition.
Right.
We don't fit in the charter school box because it is a
don't take
private
state
school
money.
and we don't take state money, and we have the religious component of it. So we're kind of our own box. So when you look at who our supporters are, if you were a traditional private school, you would talk to your families. We don't talk to our families about
They have
supporting
no
the
money.
school. So if you're looking at other schools, I have hosted a meeting of my colleagues from other schools in Houston, and it's a little embarrassing to say, I'm looking at your families, that I'm looking at your donors. So. And talking to them, but we are definitely innovative, unique, and we don't fit that typical look. So when we look at our programs, we have to approach them that same way. So when I talked about setting up house, who are we? I mean, who is that we want to be on all levels?
Yeah, wow. Any other chapters to your book?
So those are the three stars, the three big ones.
Yeah, okay. Now, where were you before you came to Cristo Rey?
So I'll give you a little bit of history, because I do feel like that what brought me to Cristo Rey Jesuit is based on my past.
Okay.
And it's kind of been a journey. So when I look back and say, how did I end up here? It's really like a road, and I've kept filling these potholes along the way that led me to this. So before this, I was at Teach for America, running their development program here in Houston. I was not a member of the Corps. I was never a teacher there. My background is truly in fundraising. Prior to that, I was with Texas Children's Hospital for many years.
Wow.
I have also worked with the Houston Symphony, and I've worked out in New York with Long Island University.
Wow. Well, you've had a rich background. Did you go to college here in Houston?
I am a Texas A&M graduate. Thank you.
Very good.
Yes.
Very good. And did you go straight from Texas A&M then to go out to work in New York City at Long Island?
And no, I actually was in Houston, and I worked for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation in the March of Dimes for a few years. So one of the amazing things that I can look back on my journey and say is that I started on the event path, which many people do when they go into fundraising. And then I moved over and have gone down at the Houston Symphony. I was the director of corporate and foundation giving.
Okay.
So expanding that role, which you need to do if you want to stay in fundraising.
Yeah. Tell me about the switch from Teach for America to Cristo Rey. And Teach for America is very unique because that's a lot of fundraising. I mean, it's sort of a machine in terms of the fundraising that's going on over there.
Well, this was several years ago. So I left Teach for America in 2008 to come help get Cristo Rey Jesuit started and to establish the development program at the school. It's just much different. I think one of the things is that we've got this great school mission to show to prospective supporters and businesses who hire our kids. So it was a bit different. There you're talking about what you're raising money for is for teachers, to provide teachers in schools. So this is changing completely in that it's a facility. We have a place to show. We can show the progress. We've renovated the facility over the years since 2008 when we bought it, and it was just a rundown mess, as you saw when you came out here. So over the years, we've been raising the money and transforming the school, just as we've been transforming the students. So we have these milestones to show along the way.
How hard was it? A number of students in the class have thought about sort of starting their own nonprofit or being the first director of development somewhere. How tough was it for you to be that very first director of development or the advancement director at Cristo Rey?
Well, the good news is you don't know what it is You know, you don't know what you're going into. None of us did. So there were about 7 or 8 of us who helped get the school open, and we just didn't know what we didn't know. I remember many days going to Office Depot every morning on the way to work, because if you wanted to send a letter, we had no paper, no pens, no envelope, no stamps. You know, everything was just very, you know, just such early stages. So you had to really think through every action. We had, I think, 4 computers. We laugh in that we worked on our cell phones. Our facility is an old building. The carrier that we had did not work in the building. So if your phone rang, you had to run outside.
Wow,
You know,
really?
to answer it. So we laugh at how far we've come over the years. In starting it, I think the good thing is it's just naiveness. You know, I knew how to run a development program, but I also knew in working with Father Martinez, our president, that we weren't going to have a normal development program.
Right.
Our character, our makeup, was going to define how we operated our development program. And based on the people that we had, we made that work for us.
One of the questions that I'll sometimes ask people is, who's the best director of development in town, or who's the best fundraiser? I think that's the specific question. And I've had people say TJ Martinez is the best fundraiser in town. Your boss.
Hands down. He's
it. Yeah. Why is he the best fundraiser in town?
He is so dynamic, so energetic. He engages people like no one I've seen. It matters not their age. It matters not what they do. He just truly is concerned about the person, the individual, and loves getting to know people. And he will take the time to get to know you. He just is such a personable individual, which is why I said that chapter has to be on dating. You have to get to know someone. You need to really talk to them, engage them in conversations.
He's very good at developing that relationship.
Absolutely.
And I think people like him, not only because he's a priest, but he doesn't act like a priest. I mean, he comes with everything that a priest has, but he also uses probably a bottled hair product every day.
Correct. I think that uniqueness is what people love, is that he makes fun of himself.
Right.
You know, he talks about how often he gets a haircut or his hairstyles. And we made a poster for him that's the 30 different faces of Father TJ Martinez, 30 different hair looks, hairstyles. And I think that's what, he's so genuine. You know, there's nothing... just so personal and just so who he is and welcoming, and it's one of the things that he has truly made Cristo Rey Jesuit a gift to all of us who are involved with it. And we have found that someone walks in the door, before they walk out, they're going to find a way to get involved with us. Whether it's an Eagle Scout who's going to find an Eagle Scout project they can do with us, or volunteering by tutoring, or coming and helping in the classroom, or stuffing envelopes, just a way for people to get involved. Everybody finds their place. A great example, in our first year when we had no money at all and everything we had to watch, which we still do, but this was truly, you're starting with nothing.
I understand.
We had 2 ladies who went to Sam's every week and would buy bread, sandwich meat, cheese, lettuce, and tomato, and that was our lunch for our kids. They just made a little sandwich bar, set up a sandwich bar. Because in the first year, you can't
qualify for federal reduced school lunch.
And we had no money, and we needed to feed them. So we went through this process, and I remember when we got our first grant from the Junior League in January of 2010, and that allowed us to step it up a little bit, and we had a little caterer who brought in some food. So, that's the kind of thing, is that people find a way to get involved, and Father Martinez and all of our team have a great way of saying that. Someone once sent us a quote after visiting, and it said, "You can feel the energy of the school throughout the building. You can feel it in the people that you meet. You can feel the warmth." And that's something that stems from the top down. He has engaged all of us to engage others.
Tell me, lead me through, the whole idea of maybe one of the first significant gifts that you guys received at Cristo Rey, that you were a part of. Lead me through that process of how that happened.
Now that's a secret. So, one of the gifts, I'm going to tell you about 2 gifts that I think, and one is a financial gift and one is just a gift.
And then you'll have to kill me, I understand.
Right, exactly. Yes. So, one would be that the generosity of the Kinder Foundation, making a $1 million gift to Cristo Rey Jesuit, that gift really allowed, here we were, a new school in the city of Houston, a great city for education reform with Teach for America and KIPP and YES and great programs. And so here we were starting out. We started with the school a year before it opened to get it established. In October of 2008, I came to work for Cristo Rey Jesuit to get the development program started. Well, that was when the economy was just tanking. Yeah. So not the greatest time to go out and ask donors for support. They were protecting what they had, and foundations, their corpuses were decreasing, and they could not extend a new grant. So when the Kinders came along about a year and a half later and they made this gift, that really was a springboard for us. That gave us credibility in Houston. That said, if they're looking at us and they're paying attention to us, then there must be something going on at that school. So that was an incredible gift.
And so tell me a little bit about the process, though. I mean, what was it by connections, or how did you get a chance to talk to Nancy Kinder and convince her that this was important?
So through other connections, she came out to visit the school and met with Father Martinez, and that's it. There you go. The rest is history.
Yeah.
So, and they are great supporters of education in Houston, great believers. And so when they saw what we were doing and believed in what we were doing, they wanted to make this gift. The second gift that I would tell you about is that Father Martinez extended an invitation to the former First Lady Laura Bush to come visit Cristo Rey Jesuit. Here we were in our first year. We started with 80 students. We started with just a freshman class, and she actually accepted. So to host the former First Lady Laura Bush at Cristo Rey Jesuit was just crazy. The idea that she would say yes and come visit us was truly crazy. But that again gave us some credibility. And she has been so gracious and has kept in touch with Father Martinez and continues to follow the school and how we're doing. So those two things, one of the things we recognize is while we're fundraising, we're also reaching out to the community to tell our story. So if you can take away that ask part and really go back to the relationships, and whether it's building it personally with you sitting right here, or through media, through stories that we've got in the media, we recognize that we need to tell our story, and we need to tell it often as we can, and in various venues, so people can read about it in magazines, online, in the newspaper, on TV. That we need to reach people in every resource we can.
About how much money every year, once you take away the money that is given by corporations to support the students, outside of that, how much money do you have to raise every year?
So that's been changing. Our enrollment has been changing. We haven't leveled.
Exploding.
It has been exploding. It has been exploded. So we have grown from 80 students our first year to nearly 460 now in our fifth year.
How much was last year's freshman class? It was huge, wasn't it?
So we had over 150 kids in our freshman class.
Wow,
I mean,
amazing.
Truly growing by leaps and bounds every year. So what has happened is that the jobs started by paying less than 20%, like 15% of the cost of their education. And then the balance was raised through fundraising, plus all capital expenses through fundraising. Now, as the school has grown and we're at 460 kids, those jobs, those corporate work study sponsors are paying about 50% of the cost of their education. So you see that increasing and fundraising decreasing. It has been a great model of sustainability, and that's one of the questions that donors want to know. How are you going to sustain yourselves? We do not want to become an annual donor to you. We do not want to be dependent upon. So what are you doing to ensure that that's going on? And so our model says that as we have these jobs, that's a great part of being sustainable in this.
So give me an idea of as you guys strategize each year. So this year you strategized, maybe a certain amount that you had to raise, and you sort of figured out the percentage that might come through your big event and the percentage that's going to come from foundations. What does that look like?
Right. So any development program should have what I would call a diversified portfolio. So just like your investments would, you wouldn't put everything in one bucket. So you shouldn't put everything in one bucket when you're looking at a budget for the year and planning for your development program. So yes, we do event fundraising, absolutely. And then we look at foundations and look at those who support education, that we would be a good fit and they would be a good fit for us. So both. And then individuals. And you want to look at individuals from two different ways. Major gift individuals, and then those who would make those annual gifts, those smaller gifts than a major gift.
And what does that percentage look like in each one for you guys?
It changes every year.
Sure.
So we're not, I told you, we're innovative in everything we do. So we host a gala. We held our first gala in 2011. And we thought, small school, we're just getting started. If we have 300 people here at our gala, that will be amazing. That would just be so fabulous. And then, we were 4 months out from the event, and we had 300 people. So then we thought, if we hit 500 people, that would be fabulous. We hit 500. Well, November 30th of 2010, so our event was in January 2011, so you're talking almost 2 months out. We sold out with 1,200 people attending our gala.
Wow.
Incredible. The response from the community, the enthusiasm from the community was overwhelming. So
and how much did you raise at that event?
$1.8 million
That's
from
amazing.
that event. So
That's
unheard
really
of.
amazing.
Who would do something like
First
that?
event
Crazy.
that you
Yes,
raised that.
yes, job security.
And was that a net? Was that net?
That was a gross.
That was a gross,
for,
yeah.
Yes, the event.
But you had it at the school, and so...
It was at, it was near the school.
Oh, okay.
It was at an airplane hangar near Hobby Airport, actually on Hobby Airport. So and that was just it. So we set out, the goal for the event was be unique, be innovative, just like we are, and have a good time. So the goal was not this fundraising thing. The goal was to have a good time, to put on an event that people would remember. So they certainly remembered it after that night. We also decided not to hold the event every year, which means that our fundraising, so that's why our pie chart changes each year. So we hold it every other year. So we held it in January 2013, just a year ago. Had another great and successful event, another 1,300 people there, and another $1.8 million.
So that's really very good.
It's incredible. I mean, that's remarkable. We're looking to say, when's this going to stop? Pinch me, because...
And people shouldn't think that's a normal thing.
That is not the normal thing. That is truly just incredible.
Wow, very good.
So we've already started planning for the next gala in January 2015.
Wow. When you look around town and you look at other nonprofits, and this is a typical question that we ask, do you see nonprofits that you think to yourself, man, if I was there, it would be, and you don't have to name names, but do you see places that are sort of underperforming for one reason or another, development-wise?
So I try not to be judgmental of how others are doing. You never know what's going on in their own shop. You never know their situation or what's doing it. What I really, rather than look at what's not working for them, or are they underperforming, but what is working for them and what can we learn from that? So what can we take away from that? I don't ever think that our program is developed, complete, 100% perfect. There's always room for improvement. So there's room to improve our gala. There's room to improve all of our fundraising and our communications. So we're constantly looking at what can we learn from others, little tidbits, anything that we can take away. So as opposed to saying, I wouldn't have done it that way.
Look how you answered that question.
I'm harder on my own things than I am on others.
So then
I think it's just not fair to walk into someone's shop and say that.
Okay. So let's turn it around then. So when you look around the city, and let's say we take away sort of the Texas Children's and the Rice University, do you see other nonprofits that you think, man, they are doing a fantastic job? Who are those that you think like that?
Oh my gosh, that's going to be a tough one. So, of course I have to say the schools where my kids go attend. But, I think the Children's Museum does a great job. The thing that I really look at are those stories that are untold. So those that are so small, and those are the people I think about, because those are the ones who don't have the big name, and it's harder to get their message out, and it's harder to tell their story. It doesn't mean that their mission and what they're doing is any less important or any less valuable to our community. It's a harder story to tell. And so those are the people that I look at and think, wow, look at what you're doing. And you're probably doing it with one person and who's doing everything in the office. So it's those smaller ones that I actually think about.
And there are a few
more.
that I think of Nehemiah Center as a small place that you hear about a little bit. They're doing great things, but there's very small. House of Tiny Treasures.
Absolutely.
Another one. Any others that come to mind for you that you think?
Well, today I was at CASA. I think CASA is fabulous. They do a great job. I think that's a wonderful thing about Houston is that because we are such a big city, we have so many great organizations. I know that, I'm not going to call it by the right name. I was going to say Taping for the Blind, but that's not the correct name.
Oh, they changed their name to Sight and Sound.
Thank you very much. I think Sight and Sound does a wonderful job. They're just, it's those small organizations that I think do well. I also think it's interesting to look at those smaller ones or others and say, can that be folded into something else? I know, and I have a daughter who's a junior in high school, so we're looking at colleges and resumes and talking about them, and my husband shows me resumes because he's in HR, and so, kids who founded something, and it's so amazing that they founded this new organization. Well, that is fabulous, but was that organization needed? Was it?
There's a lot of that. So what do you tell when someone comes up to you and say, I want to found a new nonprofit to do this? What do you tell those people?
Have you looked around? Is that need being met? Organizations can't meet every need, but maybe there's a reason that particular niche, and maybe it's too small, maybe it needs to be a part of something else, a bigger organization that could take it on and becomes one part of it. So I think it's looking to say, have you looked in the community and who's perhaps doing that already? And can you make that work or can you fall into that?
What's the difference between, so let's talk about that a little bit. What's the difference between someone wanting to start their own business, right? Because we encourage in this country people to start their own businesses and starting a new nonprofit. What do you think the difference is?
Great. Well, so you're starting your own business, you're looking for your own capital, your own funding. So starting a nonprofit, you're relying on the community to support you. Do you have that support from the community? What about stewarding those gifts? Stewarding that support. So looking at that, where are you going to go to get that? Who's behind you? Who's your, who are your ambassadors and supporters? And think beyond the first few years. What's the real goal in the end with the organization?
Right. And that whole end goal of trying to do good, right, or trying to do right by whatever cause you choose to work on, maybe you would be more successful being part of another organization. Maybe more good would be done that way.
Absolutely.
I think that's a big difference too, isn't it?
Absolutely. Is building, the force, it can become stronger when there are more people working on it together.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing because a lot of people talk about that. So.
And it's not saying that starting your own isn't great, but is that the right thing at this point?
Yeah. So a lot of students have texted in, tweeted in some questions. So I want to ask you a couple of these.
Terrific.
So right off the bat, Nicole wants to know, Nancy Pelosi's children attended St. Anne's. Did you meet any high-profile classmates when you attended school? Isn't that, I don't know why, Nicole. So.
Oh, great. When
Very
I attended school,
question.
I know. Let me think about that.
Did you go to St. Anne's at one point?
I did go to St. Anne's.
Okay,
yes, I did go to St. Anne's. So I don't recall there, but I will tell you a funny story. So I remember when I was at Texas A&M that Barbara Bush came to visit and talk about her husband. And she talked about the youth and the future of the youth, and it's all about you. And so I wrote a letter to her personally after that saying, if the future is up to me, then how about hiring me? So, and I did get a letter back from her response. Someone may have written it, but she did respond to my letter, and I thought it was great. And
offering you a job?
She gave me some guidance and some leads.
Oh,
so, it was perfect. It was just a great, and I think that's one of those things. I have had the opportunity to meet some wonderful people.
Yeah. Marta Alvarenga has one. What is the biggest mistake that similar nonprofits experience and the reason why they don't receive support like your organization? That's a similar question to what we've asked. What do you think? What's a big mistake?
So I will tell you, so one of the things is, and this goes to foundations, is that one of my personal rules is that I will not submit a request to a foundation without having a great discussion with them. So again, it goes back to that relationship. I don't believe that you will have greater success if you have that relationship before submitting something. So I think that some mistakes are made when organizations submit requests to people without knowing them, without kind of being invited into the house, invited to submit something, whether it's a person or a foundation.
And foundations are surprisingly, by and large, anxious to talk to people, happy to talk.
Absolutely.
We had Linda May here last week.
Linda May's a great example.
Talking about she'd be happy to help you. And I remember when I started out, Linda was happy to sit down with me and tell me who else I should be applying with.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things to ask, and that we ask. We're a new organization. Who are we missing? Who should we be talking to that we haven't talked with? Mm-hmm. So I know a funny story back when in one of my old jobs that the president wanted to submit a request to a tremendous supporter, a huge name in the community, and it was a blind ask, $1 million or $2 million or $10 million. It really didn't matter how many million. No relationship. Maybe they would just say yes. So I really want to have that conversation with them, and I think they appreciate that. They remember who you are. They're reading so many things, so many pieces of paper, and learning about foundation organizations. So knowing them personally, I think, helps them when they're reading to understand and to be able to convey that to their trustees.
Very good. Sandra Helsher wants to know if you've experienced any specific problems with fundraising because you're part of a religious organization. So
yes,
talk a little bit about that.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
A great question. Yes, not all foundations, and again, this goes back to foundations, will support religious organizations. So indeed, we have run into that, and we are a Catholic school.
Yeah.
We have this, because we have the corporate work study component of our school, that actually has been established as a separate 501c3, and that is not a religious organization. So we have a way to work with that if people want to support the jobs piece. And the jobs piece, there are expenses tied to that. The students come to Cristo Rey Jesuit every day, and we ensure that they've got their uniform on, that their hair is brushed, and they're ready to go to work, and then we load them on buses and take them to work. So there are expenses tied to that. So it's a great fit. The other thing that I was going to say about it being a religious organization is, we really try to say that absolutely we are. We don't hide behind that. But we're also a school for low-income children. And that's a greater thing, is that we're providing an education for these kids. One
question is about getting funding from the church. How much funding do you get from the church? I think people would probably be surprised about that.
Right, absolutely. So we are a member of the Archdiocese of Galveston, Houston, but we are not an archdiocesan school, so we do not get funding from them, great funding from them. We get great, incredible support from them, and they have one fund that supports us, but we run independent from them.
Yeah.
So we have our own board of trustees, and we own our school, our land, and we fundraise for all of our needs.
But I would gather that probably a lot of your individual funders are strong Catholics in our city, people who've gone to straight Jesuit as well. Is there a lot of support there?
There definitely is a lot of support from the Catholic community, but there's also support beyond that. So one of the things is my job as a director of advancement is to say, let's try to expand our reach as opposed to narrow our reach. So we're constantly looking at expanding that.
And you're the perfect sort of vehicle for that, right? It's the perfect organization. Another Catholic-related question, Monica wants to know, Monica Signs, wants to know about the former Mount Carmel students. Were they automatically admitted to Cristo Rey, or did they have to apply and qualify?
Great question. So good that she knows the background on the school.
Right.
So wonderful. For those who don't know, so Cristo Rey Jesuit is in a facility that was formerly Mount Carmel High School. It was closed, and Cristo Rey Jesuit came in and bought the school from the Archdiocese, and so we wholly own it. The students who attended Mount Carmel were not automatically admitted to Cristo Rey Jesuit. We are a completely different school. And all of the students who attend Cristo Rey Jesuit are interviewed, as are their parents. So it's not just apply and you're in. We look at transcripts, we look at referrals, recommendations from teachers, and then we interview the student and the parent. One of the crazy things is, since we are sending these 14-year-olds out into the corporate world, we want to make sure that they have presence to go out into the corporate world. So that's part of the interview process. We also want the families to understand the kind of commitment it will take, that we are a college prep school, that the education is rigorous, that there will be a lot of homework, that our school days are longer, that are you committing to providing the support for your child to attend Cristo Rey Jesuit. And then the students start in early August, and we train them to go out into the corporate world. So when you said that Clarence was watching you when you go out to eat and he gives you a hug, and when we teach them about how do you greet someone, how do you look in their eye, and how do you approach someone? So how do you establish that relationship with someone when you're working with them?
Yeah, it's a great place. Amy Guzman has a great question. How do you guys create your new prospect list each year? How do you go about doing that?
Terrific. Hey, communication. So, well, I would say two things. Communication, constantly sending out the message of who we are, finding people who are interested. The importance of the board can never be downplayed. Board members are invaluable to helping the school and looking at who are we missing, who do we need to be talking to that we're not talking to. Foundations, talking to them, who are we missing that we're not talking to. Even your own supporters, so asking them, you love us, you think we're great, who else do you think that you think would love us and would love to support us? So it's constantly talking to people, and it's getting out and doing things like this, you know, talking to people and getting in the media, getting
You really
exposure.
can't do that too much. I mean, there's some thought about, you know, well, do I have to spend all my time out as opposed to being in the office? But really, the more time you spend out meeting people, the better for the organization, isn't
Correct.
it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Getting
for
out
both you and Father Martinez.
Absolutely. And that's something that we struggle with. You know, he definitely struggles with, how do I get out there and go see people? There are only so many hours in a day, and I only have so much energy. So how do we use that time wisely? In my time, how is that spent wisely? So
I just figure when he's not at a meeting, he's on the Stairmaster or something. He's just like always going.
Yes, indeed.
Amy had another question. Before accepting a development position, if I'm a new development person, what questions should I be asking specifically about the organization I'm about to go to work with?
Terrific. I think I would look at their fundraising budget. How do they fundraise? Ask. You know, what does your portfolio look like? You're not asking for names. You're saying, what's your annual budget? What are you raising, and how are you doing that? The other thing that I think is critical, and when I interview other people I would say it's 50% skills and 50% fit. So what's the culture like? What are you looking for in that culture and that environment? And walk around, get to know it, get a feel for the place. Does that feel like you would fit in? It's equally important that you fit in there as the place fits with what you want to do. You're there, if you're at Cristo Rey Jesuit, you're there all the time. You know? So you need to love what you are doing and love your environment.
Have you, and this is without naming places that you've been, but have you ever worked at a place that after a little while you wondered, maybe I chose the wrong place?
I don't know that I ever...
That's hard, isn't it? It's a hard thing to
It is a hard thing. I don't know that I ever felt like, did I choose the right place? And I think it's one of those things really that I feel like when I got to Cristo Rey Jesuit, looking back and look at the journey, then I realized that's why I was there.
Yeah.
You know, that was what I needed to learn there. That was that pothole I needed to fill and why I needed to fill it. So at the time, I think any new job takes a while to get used to it and to figure out the people there and how it operates and is it a good fit. And then you can kind of look back. I know, you know, just personally, I see people that stay at places for short periods of time and they're constantly looking for what's the next step, what's my next growth, and my next growth is out of here. For me in fundraising, it's always been that the job is always changing, and why not learn to become really good at it? And you can influence how you change that with your ideas, with your strategies. So I've enjoyed some great tenureships at places, and when I look back at those, some of them I just think I was so fortunate. When I look at my time at Long Island University, and I remember, and I think when you leave a place is when you learn your value, right? That's when people come out to hug you. And leaving there, I was stunned by what people had to say. And we left because we moved to Houston, and it was just such a beautiful thing to hear. And
that's a different environment, isn't it?
Right,
New York City is
completely
a different.
I was the outsider. I didn't know the New York City list of who's who and who is philanthropic in the community. And actually, it was out on Long Island, so
Right.
a little bit of difference. I mean, you need to know Long Island and then some of New York City. So absolutely, I was the outsider. It took a little while to learn who the
And there they
connections
say
were.
Long Island, right?
Long Island, yes, right, the Long Island accent.
Denise Small wants to know, what was the volunteer opportunity for you at Texas A&M that inspired you to want to work in the nonprofit world, specifically in development?
Excellent, great question. So I would say there were two things that inspired me while I was in college to get out and work in the nonprofit world. And I've always worked in the nonprofit world. So over 25 years I've been doing this.
Wow.
I can't imagine being in the for-profit world. That scares me. So there were two things. Number one is that I worked for a state representative while I was at Texas A&M as a volunteer. Fun, great fun. Loved it. After school, after classes, would go and help out there with his campaign and work in the office. So that was great fun. But truly the thing that was the eye-opener, the aha moment for me that this was the field I was going to go into was there was something called the Olympic Festival. It was put on the United States Olympic Committee.
Oh, I remember
So
that.
years ago they had it, and
Yeah.
it came to Houston, and it was just national. So it was north, south, east, west, competing against each other in summer activities. So there was tennis, and there was soccer, or whatever.
What year was
I don't remember.
that? That was a long time ago, but I remember.
86-ish,
Yeah, right.
86-ish, I would say. And it was in Houston. It was over at Rice University, or at least parts of it were, the tennis venue, and I played tennis. And so I volunteered that summer for this Olympic Festival, and I loved it. I would go over to the tennis courts, did crazy things, and I remember one day looking at this, we had a committee meeting, and I looked around and I thought, I am the youngest person here by many years. All of these people were older, and I was committed to it every day. I got tile donated for the bathrooms to redo the floors in the bathrooms. I laid tile, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I did it. And it was my mother who said to me, you really enjoy doing this. You really are committed to this. You're not out getting a job. This is your job, and this is your passion, and you should think about this. So that for me was the aha moment of,
Wow.
this is a world that I enjoy, and it's not work for me. And I've recognized that I just think a little differently.
Did you get a master's degree?
I did not.
You haven't? So you
No.
just... Amy Rogers wants to know, what's the hardest part of your job being?
Great. The hardest part is leaving it at the end of the day. So
Wow.
leaving it at the end of the day and finding balance. There's always something to do, always the next thing to do. Oh, I wrote my to-do list today, and I started it in the morning, and it was so long, and then I added a few more, and then a few more, and so just leaving it at the end of the day. It's really difficult for me to walk away from it. So
Every woman who's sat in this chair has talked about the difficulty of sort of work-life balance or the non-existence of work-life balance. I mean,
Right.
is that part of that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a family, I have a husband. I want to be a great employee dedicated to the mission, and I also want to be a great mother dedicated to my kids, and a great wife dedicated to my husband. And so I think it's hard for women to do that and to walk away from their jobs.
And you
give all
you're
of them-
thinking about your job all the time. Does your husband ever stop you and say, "Stop thinking about Cristo Rey," even if it's sort of in jest?
Absolutely. Are you kidding?
Because
All the time.
my wife does that all the time.
All
yes.
the time.
Yeah, yeah.
He sees the laptop come out and he's like, not again. What are you working on now? But the reward, I think he sees the reward of it as well. And I think that's one of the great things about Cristo Rey Jesuit. We celebrated our first graduation in June of last summer. And so my husband and my kids were there in the audience to come and see what is this that Mom has been doing over the years. And the kids have come out and volunteered for the school. But to see those kids graduate, and to see the families, and to see the expression on their face, and the joy, and the incredible looks of disbelief that they would ever be in this place. The families saying, this is a milestone beyond anything that their family has seen. So to have my family there was pretty incredible to celebrate that moment.
Yeah. And the first student to get accepted to a college, Morgan, was that her name?
Yes,
Morgan?
yes,
And
yes.
she had worked at Children at Risk for 1 year.
Yes, she did. Right,
Yeah, she was
right,
fantastic.
right.
And where did she go to school? Do you remember?
She's over in Louisiana, at one of the LSU campuses.
Yeah, she was fantastic.
Morgan is terrific.
Tanitria Williams wants to know, you said earlier that you should not become dependent upon your donation. And so one of her questions is, how often does each donor donate to the organization, or what do you expect from a foundation or an individual donor? I mean, do you expect it still every year? You don't want to become dependent, but do you still want it to?
So let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
I think what I was trying to say is foundations, there are some foundations who don't want to be considered an annual donor, meaning they want to see sustainability. And I think that's where I was talking about sustainability. So there are foundations and individuals who support you on a regular basis, and those become your annual donors. That's that annual appeal. But you also have to know you're going to have some fallout. Not everyone is going to do it every single year, so you need to always be bringing in new supporters and finding new resources for support, whether it's foundations, corporations, individuals, all of those areas.
As the head of the advancement team
Yes.
at Cristo Rey, you're part of the senior leadership.
Correct.
How much of a role does that senior leadership have in creating a mission for Cristo Rey Jesuit?
A great role. You know, in establishing a school, the senior leadership team, Father Martinez, works with us and has allowed us to be a great part of the school in establishing the culture, which is critical in a high school, and the direction of the school. So I have been fortunate in that I have been a part of the leadership team, and we're referred to as the cabinet. And when we have tough decisions, we gather and we make them together. Even little things, and actually it's a big thing, but we had great discussion before the school opened on the uniform. What were we going to have a uniform? Were we not going to have a uniform? We are a co-ed school. Were the ladies going to be in skirts? Were they going to be in pants? What was it going to look like? Would they wear the uniform to work? Would they wear the uniform to
Do they only wear skirts right now?
So now we have that we do have ladies in skirts. We started them in pants our first year. Everyone was in pants, and then we transitioned over to getting them in skirts. And if they want to wear pants to their job, they can. Only to a job. At school, they wear their skirts.
Wow.
And then the seniors, so we recognize we want the seniors to feel like they are the leaders of the school. They are really setting the tone and the pace. They're looked up to. They're modeled after. So we give all of our seniors a blazer, a blue blazer, and that sets them apart. So
that's why Mr. Clarence is always wearing the blue blazer now.
Exactly, that's his uniform.
Wow, very nice, very nice. So as a director of development, or you obviously, or as a director of development at any organization, you see things in terms of shaping that mission that could have an impact on fundraising. As Cristo Rey was being set up, did you use any of your influence in that way? I mean, were there things that you said, well, if our logo looks a little bit differently, it's more easily recognizable, or this will really be good with the donors? Was there any instance of that?
So what I'd say is there are a lot of lessons learned in establishing the school, and some important decisions, whether it's uniforms. I mean, who knew when we were having that discussion on uniforms and tying it to the mission, the impact that a uniform would have. So we decided, Father Martinez, after great discussion, said, yes, the kids will be in uniforms, and this is what it'll look like. And every day, our kids have their beautiful blue sweater vest, and it has our name and our logo right here. So we now have 460 ambassadors all over the city of Houston, and corporations across the city wearing our logo and spreading the message.
And donors are seeing that.
And donors are seeing it. So absolutely, those
So were you a big proponent of Yes uniforms yourself?
You know, honestly, I don't even remember how it went. We did, because we haggled and haggled over it. I mean, I think the uniforms are amazing. They just look incredible. But the other thing is just branding. We brand everything. It was critical to us that one of the ways to get our message out is through our branding. So we're consistent and we're constant. So the kids must be in their uniform every day, must have that logo on. Our vans, you'll see them around Houston because they're bright yellow. They've got our kids on them as well.
And you guys are the Lions, is that right?
Correct.
Yeah,
the Cristo Rey Jesuit Lions.
And is it true that TJ designed the sun that is sort of like the...
Absolutely. So we had a generous firm called Brand Extract that worked with us and pro bono designed our logo and did all of our work in the beginning in helping us establish our crest, our mission statement. They helped us with that. They helped us with everything about the image of the school, and they trained us to be great understanders of the brand and using the brand. And so when they worked with him on the logo, that's the cross of Constantine coming through the sun as he woke up and was about to go to war.
Wow. Wow, very interesting. Raquel Ramos has a great question. She wants to know about partnerships. You know, there's so much pressure from the foundation world to collaborate and do partnerships.
Right.
What sort of great, I mean, you obviously have the wonderful partnerships with corporations all over town,
Right.
but any nonprofit partnerships?
Well, look at us with Children at Risk.
I know, right?
So the
Yeah.
collaboration is a big word in the foundation world. Absolutely looking at those. Cristo Rey Jesuit would not be what it is without those collaborations. And I'm just going to put, you know, we have 130 corporate sponsors, so I'm even going to put those aside. But then look at Opera in the Heights, who comes to visit our kids. And because the way our program works with our kids going to work, 25% of our students are at work every single day. So if Opera in the Heights wants to come visit Cristo Rey Jesuit, they have to do it over a 2-day period. They can't come once. The Holocaust Museum has come in and embraced us. We have a great relationship with the Holocaust survivor who has supported the school and loves the school and adopted us. Just so many partnerships that have really helped our kids in the school. You know, I know there's over at U of H, I believe, that there is a Department of Ophthalmology that is supporting helping our kids with getting glasses.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things, a lot of ways that people are helping. And we got that connection through a foundation who said, I was just here and you need to go talk to them.
Oh, good. Very good. I think it's interesting that the energy that you've talked about, that's at Cristo Rey, and that I've seen, people want to help in many different ways, which is really nice. And that's possible at any nonprofit, isn't it? I mean, I think as a development person, you want to work at that type of nonprofit where people are going to be excited. Your job is certainly easier, probably, being at a place that people can get excited.
Absolutely. There's no doubt that it's easier because of the uniqueness of the school, the innovation, the buy-in from the corporations, the fact that we don't rely 100% on fundraising, that our kids are out there getting this experience, that it's changing their lives with it, there is nothing like it in Houston.
Yeah.
So because of that, people love it. Corporations love it. Individuals love it. They see that the future is just being changed by Cristo Rey Jesuit, the future in Houston. So yes, it is easier, and the innovation, and I think the energy, you know, the balance is, it goes back to that setting up your house, that chapter. Who are you? Who do you want to be? What makes sense for you? When we had our gala, our first gala, and it was so successful, people came and I was getting calls and emails, what's the secret? What's the secret? You know, I want to know how you did that. And I said, the secret is be true to who you are. That's who we were. That's what we needed to be. But that doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah.
And so you need to be true to who you are.
Wow. Let me ask you one last question, and then we'll go to our final questions for the evening. This is from
Okay.
Tanitria Williams
Great.
again. Who decides and how is it decided which students are going to go where and who's going to go to which place in the workforce and which corporations you're going to work with?
Absolutely. So the companies come on board. We have a committee, stems from our board, that goes out and helps us to talk to corporations, to engage them in hiring the kids. Once the kids start school in early August, and we talk to them, we learn of their interest. We do a little personality profile so we can see what areas they may be interested in. We also teach them some skills, some Excel skills, some research skills. And so we look at the companies. What kind of student are you looking for? Do you need someone? Clarence is a perfect example. You needed someone who is going to be this possible on-air personality, as was Morgan. And so you got this big personality. Other places need someone who excel in Excel. And so we'll look for someone who has that fit. the students also have an opportunity to say what their areas are that they're interested in. So we have a lot of students interested in the medical field. So we'll look at them to partner with our hospitals. And then at the end of the year, we'll talk to the company, we'll talk to the students, and we'll look at what both say about each other and see if we should continue with that relationship. So some of the companies, we've seen them where they've had students that were there for 2 years, 3 years, and have said, you know what, it pains me. We would love for them to come back, but we know they need to see another opportunity. They need to see another experience. So we are going to let them go so that they can have a different opportunity. And the kids see that same thing. Some of them want to say 4 years in the medical field, done. 4 years at a law firm, that's it. That's my path. And even then, we may try to rotate them to different law firms so they have different experiences.
Final 4 questions for you.
All right, ready.
If you were working in any other job besides doing fundraising, what would you be doing, Bea?
Oh my gosh, you know, I have thought of that, and I have no idea. That's where it goes back to that scaring me about the corporate world. So I think, is the nonprofit world the world for me? And when I've had breaks in my jobs, I've thought, well, this is it. What can I do? What should I do?
Do you have a fantasy career? I mean, I'd like to be an NBA player. I wonder if you have any fantasy career.
So maybe an actress.
An actress.
You know, that would be fun. That would be fun.
Okay. Good. Do you have a favorite restaurant in town?
Lucille's. Easy.
Oh, wow, what a great place that is.
Have you been there? Yes.
Many times,
yes,
actually.
Lucille's.
I like to sit
gem.
at the table up near the fireplace up in the little
Oh, sure.
high
I haven't
area.
made it up there. That must be the VIP
Special
area.
deal,
Yes,
so.
I'm down.
Yeah, that's great. And they have, I think, some of the best fried chicken in town.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Southern comfort food, although I'm the one, I go to the shrimp and grits.
Yeah, people love the shrimp and grits. Is there a secret place in town of some sort that you really like that not many people know? Not necessarily a restaurant, but a place?
Discovered it this weekend. Actually, kind of in transition. So Ma'am's up in the Heights. So they had a trailer truck in which they provide, in the summertime, they had New Orleans Snowballs there. And they became so popular that they opened a storefront over in the Heights. And their original trailer was in the Heights.
Ma'am's?
Ma'am's.
Wow, I'll need to visit. And
Indeed.
what's the difference between a New Orleans snowball and a snow cone?
Just much better. I think the ice, how it's done, the topping, and then they also put a scoop of vanilla ice cream inside at the bottom.
Wow,
you know,
that's
you can't beat
fantastic.
that, right?
Right.
So we just went there this weekend, and it was fabulous.
Wow. And then our final question:
All right.
when they make the B. Dickson story in Hollywood, who's going to play you?
Reese Witherspoon.
Very
Hands down.
good. There
Who do you
go.
think?
Yeah, I like Reese
Yeah,
Witherspoon too.
there we
Yeah,
go.
very good. And you guys are about the same age. That's perfect, right?
There we go.
Yeah. What are you, 29 now? Is that?
Exactly. Oh, no, one marriage.
Oh, I don't even know her married life. So, B, thank you so much. I want to thank you for what you do. People need to visit Cristo Rey Jesuit because it's such a great place. But thank you so much for being in this class and talking to all these students. We're so glad that you could join us here in the Leadership Studio. And look up Cristo Rey. I know some of you have done it already because that's reflected in the questions. But keep up the great work. We love seeing the reaction papers. And we'll talk to you guys real soon and see you next week here at the Leadership Studio.